Welcome to our 5-minute takeaway sessions presented by the Guild of Letting and Management. My name is Susie Crolla. I'm Managing Director of the Guild of Letting and Management. Welcome to our 5-minute takeaway, and we'll be talking about financial sanctions and letting agents during this session. Effective from the 14th of May 2025, the OFSI, which is a division of HM Treasury, will enforce new legal obligations on all UK letting agents. Now, this regulatory change integrates letting agents into an existing financial sanctions framework, and this aligns them with other regulated sectors such as estate agents and financial institutions. So we're going to think a little bit about the legal context and purpose. Under the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2018, letting agents will be classified as relevant firms. What this means is that they will be mandated to conduct due diligence to ensure that neither landlords nor tenants are designated persons under UK financial sanctions. This initiative aims to prevent sanctioned individuals or entities from participating in the UK rental market, thereby bolstering national security and mitigating financial crime risks. So what's the scope of these obligations? These obligations will apply to all tenancy agreements with a term of 1 month or more, now irrespective of the rental amount. This marks a significant shift from previous regulations, which primarily focused on high-value tenancies exceeding €10,000 per calendar month. Now, it's also important to bear in mind what the definition of letting agency work is. Letting agency work encompasses activities undertaken in response to the instructions from either prospective landlords or tenants who are seeking to let or rent land for a term of 1 month or more. This includes the process of matching landlords with tenants and facilitating the conclusion of a tenancy agreement. Now, there's some things that we need to bear in mind in relation to reporting triggers. Letting agents, as part of this process, are required to report to the OFSI as soon as possible if they know or have reasonable cause to suspect that a client or a counterparty is a designated person. The other element is to identify that there has been a breach of the financial sanctions regulations. And this obligation to report is extremely important, and it will be activated at specific junctures. So, for example, a prospective landlord, from the point of instructing the agent, that would be a trigger. And for tenants, once the landlord or the agent on the landlord's behalf accepts the offer from the tenant, this initiates the process of concluding the tenancy agreement. Now, one thing that is extremely key here is there has been reference to counterparties. So it's important to take into consideration that other parties may be involved in the transaction. For example, institutions that are the beneficial owners of properties, limited companies, pension funds, charities and trusts. There are also parties that act legally on behalf of the landlord. Think about powers of attorney, executors and trustees. We need to factor into this the parties who act on behalf of the tenants or assist tenants. For example, guarantors, parents or family members who pay rent on behalf of the tenant. And then finally, but not limited to, we need to take into consideration the directors of limited companies who must also be vetted. Now, the reporting requirements and the reports to the OFSI must include a great deal of information. Firstly, the information or the matter on which the knowledge or suspicion is based. Identifying the details of the individual or the entity suspected to be a designated person is extremely important. And then the details of any funds or economic resources held for that designated person. It's imperative that these reports are submitted promptly to ensure compliance. Therefore, if this comes to light on a bank holiday, then we would have to wait until the next working day. Now, there are compliance measures for letting agents to ensure that they adhere to these new obligations. The first element is to integrate sanctions and the checks required into their client onboarding processes. It's important to regularly, and I can't stress this enough, consult the OFSI consolidated list of financial sanction targets, which can be found on ofsi.gov.uk. It's important to maintain comprehensive records for all the checks and actions that have been taken. And then one of the key points is to provide a training program for all staff. So it's important to bear in mind the consequences of non-compliance. Failure to comply with these regulations can result in severe penalties for the letting agent. And these include unlimited fines, criminal prosecution, and reputational damage to the agency. It's also important for letting agents to understand and implement these requirements to avoid such repercussions. We'd like to have a quick look at the distinction from anti-money laundering regulations and the way that these sanction checks differ. While AML regulations previously applied to high-value tenancies, the new sanctions and obligations extend to all tenancy agreements of 1 month or more, regardless of the rental value. This expansion necessitates that all letting agents, even those previously subject to AML regulations, now comply with financial sanction requirements. Now, these are the recommendations for letting agents. Review and update compliance policies to incorporate sanction checks. Utilise reliable tools and services for conducting the sanctions screening. Now, that could be outsourcing the screenings or conducting them in-house. Ensure that all staff are properly trained in these new obligations and the way in which the reports are meant to be conducted. Establish a clear protocol for reporting to the OFSI. For further information and guidance, letting agents are advised to consult the official OFSI guidance on financial sanctions for letting agents, and this guidance can be found on ofsi.gov.uk. Thank you for listening to today's session. For further information on the services we offer, head over to our website and subscribe to our channel. I look forward to seeing you next time.